And welcome back to the show, and we kick off the show with our first guest and a person that certainly has been part of the 3XY family here for many, many years. We talk, of course, of Harry Petropoulos, and we could actually give you a title, Harry, as 3XY's financial advisor.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you.
And Harry, thank you very much, and welcome to the Hellenic Hour here. And of course, all the interviews are conducted in English, which is for our second and third and fourth generation Greek Australians. And Harry, let's kick off the show in regards to the changes or the proposed changes to superannuation.
Yeah, look, there have been some. Look, clearly there have been some changes recently with the area of superannuation, and unfortunately, there seems to be changes every year, and it's getting to a stage where it's very difficult to understand how superannuation works, how it operates, and what's your tax position. I think it's fair to say, Ross, that, back in the 80s when Paul Keating introduced superannuation,
yes,
it was a very simple and easy system to understand. It was basically, back 25 years ago, an employer puts in 3%. They encouraged you to put some money into your super, and they did that because they said to people like you and me, by the time you reach the age of 65, don't depend on the government pension. It's not going to be there for you. So here are some great tax advantages that you can utilise and obviously fund for your own retirement.
Yes.
What's happened, Ross, over the last 25 years, superannuation has grown to an exponential amount. I think there's over $1.5 trillion in the super pot. And the government have realised that they can get their hands on it. And obviously they're taxing us to such an extent where it makes it really difficult now to get your head around it. Obviously the changes over the weekend are that if you have retired and you're drawing pension out of your superannuation account, it's over $100,000, they've said they're going to tax you at 15%.
15%.
So that is, if you're drawing out a pension of $150,000, the first 100 is tax-free. The balance of the $50,000, you'll be taxed at 15%. And unfortunately, in my opinion, that's not going to be the end of it. There are more tax changes coming in the near future. So
you're suggesting that perhaps the government will increase this base, we could call it, let's say, a threshold of 100,000, and it'll be at 15. But you're saying that perhaps in the future it might even go more and go to 20 or whatever.
Look, I do. I think. Look, superannuation. Look, there's some good in it. There's no doubt about it. There's some great aspects about towards superannuation, but the marketing of it. In Australia, it's just a brilliant strategy that the government has imposed on all of us. We're throwing money into super, and we don't really understand where our money is going. I mean, I've been a big advocate. If you've got a housing loan and you need to make a financial monthly commitment to the bank, I say to a lot of young kids now, don't put your extra contributions into your super fund. Put them onto your monthly mortgage. That just makes a lot of sense. So once you get rid of your financial commitments, especially your home mortgage, only then you should be considering super. You shouldn't be considering it beforehand. Unfortunately, we live in Australia, we live in a society where super seems to be the buzzword at this point in time, and given that's the buzzword, people are just throwing their money into super without really knowing how it actually works.
Well, that seems like we're doing an about-face because, as you said a few years back, everyone was looking at securing at least a pension by pouring in money into their super, because that gave us confidence for the future that we would have some assistance when we need it down the track. So,
absolutely. Look, I think you're right. I think that as a vehicle for retirement, superannuation is one of those areas that perhaps you need to consider. But the challenges are the following: that tax changes that are happening on a perpetual basis. It seems to show that the taxing of superannuation, it's getting to a stage where it's just not going to be worthwhile. And if you've poured money into your super, especially at our ages, I'm 47 years of age, I can't exactly take it out. So they say that these changes are not retrospective. Well, they are. Because I started off with putting money into super on one set of laws, and 20 years down the track, I find that these laws change every year.
Well, can I ask then the question, if you have an investment property, for instance, as an example, and you're at our age, let's put it that way, and you're looking at selling this investment property, your tax would probably be less than what you'd be taxed with your superannuation.
Look, it's getting to that stage. In fact, as an advisor, I'm starting to recommend people, if you want to build a retirement strategy, perhaps we should start considering strategies outside of super. And the simple reason, because super is becoming a black hole, it's unknown. So there's nothing wrong people providing for their retirement by using investments as long as it's outside of super. For instance, direct property. It's been a fantastic investment in the last 20 to 25 years. We do have negative gearing that we can use towards our advantage, and therefore we know the rules. They don't change. Oh, I guess they can change the rules with negative gearing too. But it seems to be a strategy that's more sound than what super is. I mean, I know a couple of years ago, they mentioned that you can now start buying investment properties under the area of your superannuation fund, and that's fine. A lot of people went out and started designing their own self-managed super funds, and they started getting excited, and they started buying property under super. Well, now they're stuck because all these changes that Wayne Swan and Gillard are talking about, people are sort of scratching their head and they're saying, well, why did I do that? Why did I buy my investment property into my super fund? Perhaps I should have done my investment property outside of super. And this is the dissectomy that we're going to have, investments inside of super and investments outside of super.
So you're saying that with your self-managed funds or your super, that and that was, from what I understood too a few years ago, that this was a sort of a safe way that when you did sell a property that you wouldn't be taxed on that component.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct, Ross. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, and that was the big carrot. That they said that, look, if you've got your own self-managed super fund, look, instead of you buying property directly yourself and then selling it and then
being subject to capital gains, obviously.
Correct, and paying the capital gains tax, that they've gone, well, put into your super. You can sell your property inside of your super, be capital gains tax-free, which it still is. But you know what? I'm scared now that sometime down the future, they may turn around and say, oh, guess what? If you've got a property in your super fund, we're going to tax it now. And you're stuck.
Yes, yes.
So this is where I think the area and the complexities of superannuation make it difficult for individuals like you and I to make a decision how we build our nest egg. Do we do it inside of super or do we do it outside of super? I mean, I'm not the one to provide the answers, but I do know, in terms of myself, I'm having second thoughts now that all my investments should be done outside of super because there are more changes coming. And I think Wayne Swan and Julia Gillard did mention that they're establishing a council of superannuation members to look at different ways of bringing additional changes.
So, in rounding off this particular topic, what could we sort of suggest to the youth now who have just started work? Obviously, they're putting money in towards their super. They're looking at investments. They're looking at perhaps shares and so on. What do we say to the youth now in regards to their future plans?
Ross, that's such an easy question for me to answer. Anyone that's listening to this program,
yes,
and have bought their first house, or they're newlyweds, or they're married, and they've got a mortgage, ignore superannuation entirely. They should be putting every single cent onto their mortgage, which is the best investment that they can make. Once their house is paid off, then they can come and see people like myself or go see their financial planner, and then they can decide whether super is a worthwhile investment. But to the youth, ignore it. And I've been saying this for the last 10 years. Do not contribute into super unless your mortgage is paid off.
Okay, so first priority, obviously, and it's a very wise thing you're saying, Harry. First priority should be to bring down your debt as far as your investment or your property is concerned, and then look at other ways of investing, or perhaps super, or perhaps shares, or whatever you feel comfortable with. But first option should be bringing down your debt.
Ross, pay off your home. There's no two ways about that. So if someone's contributing $50 or $100 a week into the super because they believe or they think that at the age of 65 they're going to have millions and millions of dollars. Well, you know what?
Well, they might have, but they'll be. Who knows what they'll be taxed? I mean, that's the unknown, quantity that we're looking at the moment.
It is, Ross. It is unknown. But you know what's known? Someone that's got a mortgage and their monthly payment might be, I don't know, $1,500. We use that as an example, but they've got the capacity of giving in an extra $400 or $500 onto their mortgage. You know what? As a financial planner.